Hey everyone, welcome. Hello. Lovely to be here with you today on another cold winter day here in the Midwest. And I have been going through a ton of old papers and notebooks and um, unloading some old energy. So I wanted to get on here and chat a little bit about identity and and what is your identity attached to, right? Who are you to yourself that is who you think you are, how you think you are, and maybe your value, your worth. I've had a couple different conversations recently around this topic, and really just around when we get really what is it, used to who we think we are in kind of this one-dimensional way of being in relationship with ourselves, and that identity, right, becomes like a definition of us. It's a role that we play. It is an experience that we live into and then believe that is our truest expression. So this has been up for me a lot, and it's been interesting as well to hear it, like I said, in other conversations and a little bit even with other clients. When I first got on this path, one of Gurudev's teachings that he would talk about, which I thought was really interesting at the time because I was still really learning the yogic perspective, right, of ego, so to speak. And one of the things that he said is that in order for the ego to truly choose to surrender, to act, to have the power of true choice, we have to have a healthy ego structure. We have to establish a healthy ego before we can choose to, let's say, surrender, purify, redefine, and refine the ego. And that becomes really important, right? When we're forming our sense of self. We form our sense of self in those informative years. And a lot of that happens from the teens into the early 20s. And those are really important. It's an important phase and stage to where we start establishing our identity, our sense of power, how we navigate the world around us. And am I doing that from a sense of knowing myself at that stage and phase of my development? And then through life, we get to refine that, right? We learn, we grow, we stretch, right? Maybe we get turned upside down a couple times because we get new experiences and we learn new things. But when we're on the spiritual path, it happens so much more rapidly. And that was really what Gurudev was speaking to from a tantric, feminine-based tradition of the divine feminine, where that type of path, working with the activated Kundalini, is a very quick, rapid fire sometimes transformational process. And if we haven't been stabilized in that deeper sense of our health, a healthy ego, right? A healthy, healthful way of holding ourselves, then we can't really be choosing with complete consciousness and mindfulness to let go of parts of ourselves, because we don't really know what we're letting go of, and we don't really have that foundational inner stability to uptick perhaps into new expressions and even new identifications. And what I love about this, and what I've been talking about lately for myself, is that I feel like particularly this last year has been like every couple months I get to meet a whole new incarnation of myself, right? Not from a past life perspective, but from this life. It's like things have been changing so fast, and my attachments to any egoic identification continues to kind of get blown out of the water. Now, when we're seasoned at this, it's like we're not attached. We're not too attached to begin with, right? We don't really identify as solidly as we may have in our earlier years or even earlier on in our awakening process. We begin to recognize that who we think we are now is not going to be who we think we are, or who we are, 2 years from now, maybe even a year from now. And I guess I just have to laugh at this entire process this year, because it feels like every couple months, my directives from my soul is, nope, we're going to do this now. Nope, we're moving here. Nope, oh, we're moving here. And what I'm finding is each successive movement is continuing to strip away levels of identification that I have had. Part of that has been that I have been doing this work, in a very specific way for 30 years. And over the last couple years, it's been shifting a lot, it's been morphing, and it's also been dwindling. And so there have been new phases that I've stepped into that's needed to learn, right? So I've had to let go of one identity, step into, actually old perceptions of identification that I had to clear, right? So I've had to clear those karmic loops, which I've talked about in other videos. And now I find that this is happening again, but it's even becoming more stark, because my life feels like it's starting to be very twofold. It's embodying two very different realities, and I'm being asked to merge and marry them. Merge and marry has been the theme and the voices in my head by my guides every time the new phase, and I go, what? Really? This? And then they're like, merge and marry, and I'm like, okay, merge and marry. So it's been just a fascinating ride. But I'm also really been pondering how deeply we are identified as collectives as well. Collective consciousnesses that have very specific identifications of what we're individually supposed to look like and what specific collective consciousnesses are supposed to look like. And we become like, embedded, right? We're embodying these consciousnesses, but then we're not letting them flow out when new things come in. when new perspectives come in, when the universe is saying, no, this isn't working anymore. We're doing this now. We need to look at it this way now. We need to, we need to take our vision from outside inside now. And I think with all of us that are going through a collective awakening, I think this is one of the identities that's happening. Some of us know we're going through a collective awakening. And then we latch onto that. And I'm going to say we're like, maybe not latching, maybe we're holding on to it, right? We're holding it in order to orient ourselves into this new paradigm. And yet we want to be careful not to latch on to, oh, now I know, now this is who I'm going to be here and how I'm going to operate and what it's supposed to look like. And we might see that mirrored back in a new collective that we're moving into. And then there are those collectives that are awakening that don't know that that's what's happening. So they're still trying to hold on to these old identities. But then things don't make sense anymore, right? Then it becomes even more of kind of like this crucible of a deep, it's that deep death of who we thought we were. And I think that we're going to be seeing this more and more and more. And it requires this new kind of resiliency, an inner resiliency. And I think, my perspective is it is important at different junctures to know what it is that we're identifying with, know what role I'm playing, right? What is the purpose of the role that I am being asked, that I'm being nudged, or that I'm being shoved into fulfilling? And that might have a very different expression than what I thought the trajectory of my inner reality or my egoic structure was going to look like. And that can be challenging, right? It can be like, no, this is not the way. This was the way. And life is saying, that was the way. You're right. That was the way. And now, starting today, it's this way. And so it's like taking off costumes and putting on a new one, right? Taking off a costume, putting on a new one. And I'm using the word costume because as we continue along this journey, we begin to recognize that every incarnation that we get to step into is a role, because we've become, and I don't mean that flippantly, because we have become a new version of ourselves. We have remembered a new version of who we've always been. And now that version gets to come to the forefront for its time in the spotlight, so to speak. It might dress differently. It might behave differently. It might, and it doesn't mean that we don't have our deeper essence that's always consistent. But as we continue to refine the way that we think, the way that we handle our emotions, the people in our lives as being in alignment or maybe not in alignment anymore, the vocation that we do as being true to form, right? This is my role. This is my purpose. or maybe it's not anymore. And oftentimes within that, right, within the time that we're taking off one costume and putting on another, we stand naked. We stand naked in this neutrality of who am I now? I mean, obviously we are that naked source that has no identifications, right? Has no attachment to what and how our soul, the divine, wants to show up through us. And yet, we're still in the very active journey. Few of us, right, can strip it off and not need to put anything back on. And even those masters, right, the amazing masters that are high level in their illumination and maybe even completely, completely awake, maybe, enlightened. I don't use that word. But even they harbor a personality, right? They embody a personality in order to activate this human expression on our planet. The question then is, how resilient are we? Can we stand naked and not have to know for a period of time? It might be 24 hours, right? It might be a week. Or we might start to like, oh, okay, I think I'm putting on this outfit and this is how I'm feeling. I'm supposed to show up. But, we haven't put on the persona, right? That part of us has not completely stepped out. And I think a really easy way, as I'm talking about this, I don't know, I'm just feeling it out as I go. But I think about how to make this really concrete, right? And we go through phases and stages in our life. Say, for instance, we move from grade school into middle school and high school. And who we were at probably 5th and 6th grade, we turn into this whole other animal, sort of, when we hit those teenage years, right? We're developing, who am I? We're trying to figure out this new sense of self, this new independence. And then that's going to have phases and stages. How do I show up? Who is this personality, right? Am I cool? Am I kind of shy and maybe a geek, right? Am I a bad boy or a bad girl? Am I happy all the time, right? We get to try on something that's already intrinsic to us in our developmental stages, but it's a drastic shift. And we don't think about it because we're completely ready to let go of that young kid identity. And we're ready to move into this more, maturation process. And we think it's a lot mature, but it's usually not. And then we might move into, what is our college identification? What is that level of expression of how I dress, how I think, how I act, what I'm learning, what I surround myself with? What am I experimenting with in life? What am I exploring? Am I really focused on my career? Am I just kind of along for the ride and, just want to party, right? We don't recognize that we're trying on different parts of ourselves, and we're moving through different aspects of ourselves and taking a role off with its costumes and putting a role on. So I think we see this then, we get married or we move into our first career. All of these are junctures where we're becoming someone who we truly have always been waiting to become. And yet we identify with it at that time. Along the spiritual journey, the identifications begin being more fluid, right? We don't attach too tightly. We don't identify too strongly. If we do, and if we're continuing on our, purification of our egoic construct journey and experience, we're going to have to shed that. And if we're super attached to that, it's going to be painful, right? So I think that it's fascinating individually and collectively that we have organizations, we have religious and political, different factions. We have those that are for things, those that are against things, those that have an activist part of them that rightfully step up because that is a part of their intrinsic nature. And then we have those that have, maybe they're not as active. Maybe they aren't feeling a lot of the fire burning, right? Because they have a different orientation. But when we come to collectives, each collective seems to think that their collective identification, which is a first chakra tribal consciousness. And one of the first things that on an individual journey that eventually we have to break out of is our own personal, tribal, familial, religious, any group mind. We have to break out of that and pull away for a period of time to begin to differentiate from the collective and identify as the individual. The personal journey begins. And then eventually we may go back, right, into that organization, into that collective by complete choice, not by indoctrination, right? And, we might go back into the religion that we were raised from because now we've experienced life and we've said, yeah, I felt conditioned into that, but now I see what makes sense for my soul's journey and for what really supports me now. And so I choose that path, or maybe some of those beliefs, whereas maybe I shunned them for a period of time, right? Because I felt like I had to, and I had to find my own way. So we're seeing this within the collective awakening now. There has to be this thick collective pockets of consciousness where they are identified, right? Where there is deep identification in right and wrong, good and bad, up and down, black and white. And eventually what's going to have to happen is that those collectives are going to have to break apart from that collective identity. And I think that this is part of what we're starting to see in our world is the beginning of the collective first chakra being purified. So it's interesting, just, food for thought, contemplation, exploration, a different perspective of viewing and visioning, perhaps, examining our own personal identifications and the roles that we have lived and embodied, and are those roles still relevant? Are they still refining us, right? And helping us to redefine our own soul, wholeness, and presence. The ways that we think about ourselves or project those thoughts out into the world and want to maybe hold on to because that's what we know, that's what we've been doing, right? Maybe it's our livelihood. But if the soul has a different agenda and you're on the awakening path, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this, then what's going to happen is the identity that you know at some point needs to rumble. It needs to shake up. Things need to crumble around and not work in the same way anymore. That might be marriages. That might be jobs. That might be retirements even, right? And then we realize, whoa, okay, my retirement, it's not what I thought it was going to be. I need to do something different because something else is calling me forward for refining. Friendships, right? I may have been in one role that really fit with this group of friends that I love dearly, but does it work anymore? Or am I being called to expand into a whole different experience, whole different thoughts, perspectives, ways of being, ways of spending my time, right? And when we go through these, we stand naked for a while, like, okay, I'm not sure. And can we rest in that uncertainty, that unknown, the discomfort, the mourning, the grief, maybe even the anxiety, and breathe. And let our skin, the old skin shed. We're in the year of the snake. Let that skin, let it molt, so that then a new skin comes from the inside and creates a new redefining, but yet not attaching, right? A new identity that simply is, oh, this is the role that I get to put on now. And this is what's being asked. And not attach, not create stories. And let go of our ideas and our attachments to what things were supposed to be. This can be very hard. I've been going through and that interesting, it's a softer mourning process, and really many things. It's like by June, almost nothing in my life is going to be what it's been for the last 20 plus years. And slowly, as I'm moving towards June, this is falling away, right? Things that I thought about myself, expectations that I had for myself, right? Visions that I had a certain way that my next level was going to look, or my next highest timeline was going to look. It's thrown me a couple curveballs, I'll say that. And there's confusion, and yet the deep guidance is very clear and true. And I know that. And so I know that it's just the death, right? It's just a death process of what's been and what I thought was. And what I know is as I continue to let go and I continue to step in, life is refining me from a soul level, which means that everything that blooms forth is actually in perfection for the highest good of my own evolution. And I know this because I've done it many times. I have complete faith and trust in it. And my guess is you too have gained that faith and trust over the years and over each ebb and flow and cycle. And, so we gain more courage, we gain more confidence, we gain more, knowing, like, oh yeah, been here, I know what's happening. I'm going to go through the emotions. I'm going to feel the loss. I'm going to feel like the part of me that is maybe no longer, and let it go, so that I can put on my new garb, whatever that's going to be, and move into my next level of spiritual maturation, because that's really what we're doing through each phase and stage. We're coming into our highest expression. And when you're moving into that highest alignment of our highest light and love and life, and allowing, circling back as I close to what Gurudev talked about, we understand our egoic construct, and we can choose, right? Because we understand that it's only the ego that is going to experience the suffering. And we allow it to purify, and we hold it tenderly, right? Because that is not us, but it is refining with us as we go along our journey. But it's when we have the complete choice to say, yes, I will let go. Yes, I will go into the unknown. Yes, I will let go of what I wanted or what I thought I wanted, because that's what I thought when things were one way, but now things are another way. I think that's it. So I will say I just saw the Amazon people come. So the new Oracle cards have arrived, and I probably won't do it today, but I will probably do it tomorrow. So we are going to explore new energy and new beautiful invitations for our sacred pauses. All right. So many blessings, much love, and let your skin just keep shedding if that's what's happening, and feel all the feels, and keep coming into the faith and trust and the knowing that we are held and guided always by the divine when we say yes to that assistance. All right. Blessings.